help me welcome back to the stage producer Mark Lipson.
Where'd you find that? Where'd that come from?
Well, you know, as Errol has always had an affinity for and a love for tabloid-like stories. Though as he points out, this story he actually read in the Boston Globe, I believe it is, and it was just the part about the dog cloning. And then I think buried down 7 paragraphs, some mention of, and it may be the same, because she was using her Bernan, so it wasn't as yet fully known that, in fact, it was our lovely Joyce. So he would, when we did the Thin Blue Line, there was a story that we wanted to do as a feature about a guy who grew like a 6-foot chicken or something like that. So he's having, it's just part of his great love. Yes?
Were you guys able to actually speak to him personally at all? Or was it
No. He has the good sense of wanting to have nothing to do with this whatsoever. Letters came back, and they came back, and I understand. Of all the people, other than Steve Moskowitz, he's probably the other person I would love to meet. I would love to actually sit down and sort of find out just what really went on. But I don't know if he would add, we don't make those kind of movies, but I think his silence is a good thing. Yeah, she's seen it. She has a DVD, and she came to New York and saw it when it played in November at Doc NYC. She doesn't love it. One of the things I've told her was, if they gave an Academy Award for Best Performance in a documentary, she would win it. So, it's complicated. I think the fact that we did not set out to make some sort of anti-Mormon diatribe, that disappoints. She still believes that she was set upon by this international conspiracy, and we just don't share that opinion. When I first approached her, she felt she was constantly talking about clearing her name, and she would talk about Randall Adams and how Randall Adams got Randy, as she called him. Randy got out of jail. You got Randy out of jail. I said, so I think it became apparent after a certain amount of time that there are certain jails we can't get anybody out of.
Yeah. How did things kind of end with her and KJ? I feel like that relationship.
That's a good question. KJ, they had a falling out. It's I think he went to Florida. I think he wanted to write a book, and she didn't like that idea, so I think he died in 2004. Probably into the 90s sometime they stopped speaking.
The Mormon Church, did
Yes.
you try and reach out to them? Did they have an opinion on this?
Other than Troy, who has a radio show in Salt Lake and is very connected, we, by pure chance, the guy who was president of the Epsom region is also now Richard Robert Ayers. And so we similar to Kirk, we tried to get him to comment, contribute, and probably again, at a certain point, there's not going to be an actual dialogue about it, but it would be nice to know what they thought. And I think when the movie opens, just a little background. IFC Sundance Selects is going to release the film in July, and we hope certainly that Salt Lake is one of those places. We've been assured that that's what will do more business in Salt Lake than anywhere else in the country. Yes. That's me in a wig. No, that's fabulous. This was the project that just kept on giving. It was kind of remarkable. We found a Salt Lake filmmaker named Trent Harris, and he had done an interview with her in 16 millimeter in North Carolina in 1984. So we found that footage, and then he eventually, after I'm sort of persistent, and eventually forced him to dig in some archive basement somewhere, and that's actually a transfer of 16 millimeter film. Yeah, I think the first footage of that, it mentions, there's the BBC footage, which is in 77, 78. That's the first time she mentions the book. Then in 84 is that other, where she's walking around holding the manuscript and the dress. That was 7 years later. She still looks pretty great. Yes? She says that her father gave her, basically the price was supposed to be $150,000, and she convinced, because she's very, very convincing, she convinced RNL Bio to do it for $50,000 so that she would then promote them. Hasn't quite worked out that way. But her father gave her the money. Her father's a retired principal in North Carolina, and I believe he gave her the money maybe to put a down payment on a house, and she spent it on dogs.
Did you fly
Yes.
to Dr. here, or did you go to him? Just because it
Dr. Hong?
Yes.
Oh, we're very lucky. Dr. Hong resides a great deal of the time in Los Angeles. RNL Bio has they've kind of moved, they're doing some cloning, but in America they do like stem cell beauty products.
The Mormon Church put out any sort of statement on this film, particularly the allegations made about the Mormon theology?
Not as yet. I look forward to their response though.
Did you get worried at all that there would sort of be no middle, no really sort of credible?
Absolutely not. I think that's what makes the movie amusing. I don't want to know what the truth is. Besides, you can't. So no. I think in fact we are delighted by the polar extremes. You know, this is like very Errol. It's like, you know, what is evidence? What is meaning? He's very philosophical. This is an extremely existential film in a lunatic rapper. Yes.
What order are they done in? And is he talking to them before, like, how much does he talk to them before he ever sits them down? Like, what is
It's a very good question. He talks to them not at all, or, basically either Errol or maybe me or maybe one of the researchers will do a very brief phone conversation with someone just to make sure they're actually alive and capable of engaging. And then the interview process is very unique. Errol developed this thing called the Interatron, where he gets to he looks straight at them and they're looking at it's essentially a teleprompter, and instead of text, they're seeing a floating image of him. So that's why there's that. And the interviews go on for a long, long time. And he doesn't pre-interview. It's all about that relationship. These are made rather inexpensively. We figure out a couple of days, we get a steak, and we figure out who will be better first, second, that sort of thing. The movie evolved when I found Ken Jackson, and Errol so correctly insisted, the pilot, the sort of adolescent pilot, post-adolescent pilot, that he so insisted. I was like, I don't know if this guy's going to be a good interview, but there's absolutely bring him in. So him and Ken Gavin, the photographer, we found Ken Gavin, and he was willing. We flew in, and they were interviewed 3 months later. Because they were there. Believe me, if we could find Steve Moskowitz, we'd recut the movie now. Errol would just be like, yes.
You then go back and re-interview other people to get the counterpoints?
No, either trying to find a way to illustrate it or we let it go.
How many days of interview footage do you guys have to sift through after you're done with this whole thing?
It depends on the movie. This one, less so, because it was the fewer characters. fog of war and standard operating procedure was brutal. Standard operating procedure, I think it's 16, 18 days. The interview with Janice Karpinski alone is a 16-hour interview spread out over 2 days. So, no, it's a kind of marathon thing.
Was she pretty willing to do this, or was she really skeptical?
No, she was pretty willing. She was really interested in being able to tell her story and have her story told. And I think we've done a really good job of it. Thank you all so much for coming.